Welcome. I'm Christopher Shaw, and this is my husband, Aeon
Aeon.
Archer. And we are here for Addiction Recovery and Psychedelics webinar on May 15th, Friday, May 15th, 2026. So, psychedelics are rapidly entering mainstream conversations around mental health, trauma, and addiction recovery. What was once considered fringe is now being researched by some of the most respected institutions in the world. Johns Hopkins University, New York University, and MAPS. We're seeing research around psilocybin-assisted therapy, MDMA-assisted trauma treatment, neuroplasticity, addiction recovery, emotional processing, and long-term behavioral change. So exciting. And yet, despite of all the growing attention, very few conversations are actually happening honestly, especially inside the recovery world. So today is not about promoting substances, and this webinar is not anti-recovery, and it's not anti-12-step, and it's not medical advice. This is a conversation about healing, about addiction, and about suffering, and about why so many people continue searching for something deeper, transformation, even after years of therapy, treatment, meetings, spiritual work, and recovery efforts. So my name is Christopher Shaw again. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and supervisor in the state of Texas. I'm a certified sex addiction therapist and supervisor and a registered yoga teacher. I specialize for the last 18 years in addiction, compulsive behavior trauma, and identity level transformation. Today, alongside my husband and integrative healing arts practitioner, Aeon Archer, we want to explore this topic from both a clinical and a deeply personal perspective. And so we're going to dive right into the personal, and Aeon is going to share his recovery and psychedelic story.
Awesome. So excited. Thank you all for being here. I'm excited to share my story. It's definitely been a long, arduous journey, but that's without a doubt. So I really do believe that this topic, that it's important to hold it with a lot of care because I know it can bring up a lot for people. For some people, the idea of psychedelics and recovery brings hope. However, for others, it brings concern. And for some, it brings curiosity. For people like me who have lived through addiction, it brings up a very real question. Can something that alters consciousness be a part of the healing journey? Or is it just another way to escape? So I'm not here to answer that question for everyone. I'm not here to tell every person in recovery that psychedelics are right for them. And I'm not here to romanticize medicine work. And I'm definitely not here to say that psychedelics replace recovery, treatment, therapy, sponsorship, meetings, or the really difficult work of staying honest on a daily basis with ourselves and with our community. But what I am going to do is share my personal story. And the main thing my story has taught me is a peak experience is not the same thing as transformation. A ceremony can open something, a vision can show you something true, and a medicine can reconnect you to something inside you that is sacred. But if there's nothing around you to help you bring that experience back into your actual life, it can become just another powerful memory. And for me, that is exactly what happened for a really, really long time. My journey with drugs started when I was 13 years old, and they most definitely soothed this ache that I had inside of me that was so deep that nothing else could touch it. The desire to be anyone else other than myself. I was gay, growing up in a small town in Southern Ohio, trapped in a life and a family that just never felt like it fit. And at 13, drugs became the very convenient way to escape myself and to escape my circumstances. They became a way to make living somewhat more tolerable. And I was using them to intensify that escape as much as possible. Looking back as I got older, I can see that I didn't really know how to sit with myself. I knew how to change my state. I knew how to make things more intense. I knew how to turn the volume up on an experience, but I didn't know how to be present in my own body. As a matter of fact, I didn't even want to be present in my own body or in my life. And so all I really wanted was relief. I wanted to feel different. I wanted to feel free. I wanted the music, the drugs, the sex, and the whole environment to make me somewhere and someone else. And honestly, for a while it worked. For many years it worked. But eventually, I had to face the truth that every time I tried to escape myself, I ended up even more disconnected, more isolated, more alone. And then when I was 26 years old, something shifted. I knew something had to change, and I was really looking. I mean, I'm a shortcut seeker, so was always looking for the shortcut to perfection. And so I decided to travel to Peru, and I went deep into the Amazon jungle, and I lived with the Shipibo shamans in the Amazon jungle in northern Peru, doing ayahuasca ceremonies and training an ayahuasca medicine practitioner. And I want to be honest about why I went. I was addicted to crystal meth. My behaviors were unhealthy. My life was not working. And I was really honestly looking for something that could fix me and fix me effortlessly. Now, this was before I had ever really attempted traditional recovery. I had yet to come into the rooms of the 12 steps. So I was seeking healing and I was seeking God. I was seeking truth. But like I said, I was also looking for the shortcut. And shortcuts have never served me well. So I wanted the medicine to do for me what I did not yet know how to do for myself. I wanted it to take away the addiction. I wanted it to take away the shame. I wanted it to show me who I was and somehow make that vision of myself stick. And to be honest with you, those ceremonies were absolutely incredible and absolutely life-changing. They were powerful, they were beautiful, and they changed the way I saw myself. They opened me up to a part of me that was absolutely sacred, that I never touched before. And they gave me moments where I could see beyond the suffering I had been living inside of for so many years. So I don't want to minimize that because those experiences really mattered and they were real. But when I came back to the United States, within 2 weeks, I was back in the same cycle of addiction I had left. And honestly, that was devastating. I mean, it was so heartbreaking because I had touched something so profound in those ceremonies. I had seen something I'd never seen before. I had felt something. And I knew there was more to me than my disease. But I had no idea how to live from that place. I had no container, no integration, no recovery support, no tools for what to do when I got home and the cravings came back. I had no community helping me translate what I had seen in ceremony into how I actually lived on a daily basis when I was alone, triggered, and wanting to use. That was one of the first big lessons for me. And that lesson was that the medicine opens the door, but there has to be a bridge back into life. Because I had the peak experience. What I did not have was the structure to become the person the medicine had shown me I was capable of being. So about a year later, I went back to the Amazon. Never, as addicts, we never stop. So a year later, I went back to the Amazon. Again, I was still searching. And I was still hoping that maybe this time something would land differently. And during that trip, I made a decision to move to Argentina to teach English. Kind of ironic that I moved to the only country in the world where the last part of the country's name is my substance of choice. I don't know how that happened, but that's exactly what I did. I moved to Buenos Aires, and while I would live there, I stayed clean from all hard drugs for almost 2 years. And at the time, I don't think I fully understood why it worked for a while. But now I can see it more clearly because Buenos Aires gave me a different life. I was no longer surrounded by the same people. I was in a completely foreign city, foreign language. Everything was different. There was not one single cue that triggered my disease thinking. I was teaching English, a completely different environment, completely different rhythm. And it was like that environment became a part of the container for me. It wasn't a perfect container. It was not a formal recovery container, but it did give me enough space from my old life that I could live differently for a while. However, about 2 years in, I made the decision to go to an EDM festival with some friends. I decided to take ecstasy, which was the first hard drug I had done in 2 years. And within 2 weeks, I was back in Miami using again. And that experience taught me something that I've never forgotten. And that is environment matters. The people around us matter. The places we choose to go, the things we choose to expose ourselves to matters. And I had thought the problem was just the substance for a long time, but it was bigger than that. It was the whole pattern I had created around me that supported the person who was an active user. It was the part of me that knew exactly how to find my way back to the old life. That was easier, always. There's always the path of least resistance was to go back to my old life. And when I got back, that began a very long, painful chapter in my life. Over the next 10 years, I made a lot of geographics to a lot of different cities. I'd move places, I'd start over, I'd go to treatment, then sober living. I would get 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, and then I would fall back into the same cycle. Over the course of 12 years, I went to 20 treatment centers. I worked a number of 12-step programs. I knew the language, I knew the readings, I knew the slogans so much I could say them in my sleep. I could teach the recovery classes at the treatment centers I went to because they were all pretty much the same information, different instructor. But I still couldn't fully get it. And this is very humbling. It's a very humbling thing to admit because I had all of the tools, all of the everything, but it still wasn't sticking. Because it wasn't that I didn't want to change, but I wanted to change so desperately. I knew my life was meant for more than what I was living. During those years, I also kept studying healing. I went and became a yoga instructor. I studied integrative healing arts. I became a wellness coach. And part of all of that was sincere. I truly love healing work. I was drawn to spirituality. I was drawn to the body and to transformation. But another part of it was that I was still searching for that one missing tool that would make it easy. Would yoga fix me? Maybe breath work would fix me. Maybe coaching would fix me. Maybe this next training, this next ceremony, this next treatment center, this next insight would finally be the thing that changed everything. And I was trying so hard to heal, but at the same time, I was absolutely exhausted. And there's a phrase people use sometimes, the wounded healer, and that was definitely me. I was learning how to help others while still trying to save my own life. I could see the light. I could speak about the light. I could guide people toward the light, but I could not yet stay there myself. And that juxtaposition, that friction that was created between those two realities was incredibly painful. And during those years, I continued to have earth medicine experiences, and every time I would see the same truth. I would see that the only thing standing between me and the highest expression of myself was my disease. I would see who I really was underneath the addiction. It was weird. It was like this dark shadow was always over top of me and was almost impossible to escape. And underneath it was my goodness, my power, my purpose, the person I was capable of becoming. But then I would come back into life and realize that seeing him was not the same as becoming him. And at times that distance between who I was and who I could be, like I said, was incredibly painful. Adding to the pain, I was consistently trying to escape through my disease. The medicine could show me the truth, but I still had to live it. I still had to tell the truth. I still had to ask for help. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I still had to surrender. I had to stop believing that one more experience, one more tool, one more insight was going to do the work for me. Eventually, I reached the point where I knew something had to change. And I don't mean like casually change. Like I knew something had to change because if I did not stop the lifestyle I was living, I was going to die. I was done. I was tired. I had tried so many things and I was just over it. I finally was at that deepest level of surrender where I was like, I just give it all up. And I finally understood that I could not keep collecting healing tools while avoiding the depth of surrender that was actually required. And ironically enough, that is when I met Christopher and learned about the retreats here, Merkaba Retreats. And we met through this online group called Habitual Prosperity. There were 8 people in the group, and for me, accepting the invitation to join the group was like a last-ditch effort to like heal. From the outside, my life looked okay. I had a decent job. I could support myself. I could show up to work. I could present myself as functional as possible where people maybe didn't know there was something off. But I was suffering mentally, physically, and spiritually because my disease was thriving in my secrets. It was thriving in the shadows. And on a private call with Christopher, I finally got honest, like actually honest. I told the truth, where I was mentally, physically, spiritually. It was terrifying because I almost was certain that I would be rejected and they'd be like, whoa, we don't want this mess of a person in our life. Like, I totally thought that was going to happen. But I did it anyways. And together we came up with a plan. I would go to treatment, I would stabilize, and after that, I would come to Puerto Vallarta for a retreat. And that's exactly what I did. Now, the road between me going to treatment and getting here was not an easy one. There were a lot of roadblocks, but I just stayed in that surrender that I had discovered when I finally gave up the search for the easy solution. Now, looking back, I can see why this was different. It was not because one ceremony saved me, or one person saved me, or because I finally found that magical missing thing I'd been looking for 25 years. It was because for the first time, the medicine was part of the container. There was treatment, stabilization, honesty, relationships, spiritual care, community, and most importantly, integration. There was an environment that supported the person I was trying to become instead of constantly pulling me back into the person I had been. And after everything I had lived, the ceremonies, the relapses, the treatment centers, the recovery programs, the yoga, the healing arts, the spiritual searching, what I understood now is that integration and community are not side pieces to the healing journey. They're absolutely essential. The ceremony was never the whole answer. It could show me something. Like I said, it could open something. It could give me a glimpse of who I really was underneath my addiction. But when I got home, I still had to know what to do with that, how to integrate that into my life. I still had to know who to call when I wanted to use. I still had to have the courage to tell the truth when I wanted to hide. And I still had to know how to build a life that matched what I had seen in ceremony. And that is integration. Integration is not just journaling afterward, although that can be helpful and it's nice. It's not just talking about the vision to your friend or remembering how beautiful it was. Integration is what happens when the experience actually starts to change how you live, how you speak, how you choose, how you handle discomfort, how you show up in your relationships, how you respond when the old pattern shows up again, how much space is between you and your actions. And for me, that is where the real medicine began. Not only in the ceremony, but afterward, in those ordinary moments. So that was new for me because my disease, like I said, loves the shadows, loves the privacy, the secrecy. It loves the dark, shady corners. It loved the version of me that could look okay while quietly falling apart. And community interrupted that. Recovery interrupted that. My 12-step group interrupted that. And my life today is not held by one thing. It is held by many. It is held by my daily recovery practice, my daily spiritual practice, my relationships, and being of service to others. And by ongoing integration, walking the walk. The medicine showed me the path forward, and today I actually walk it. And I also want to say clearly, earth medicine did not replace recovery for me. It made me take my recovery more seriously. It made me more honest. It made me more accountable. It showed me that if I was going to work with these medicines in a sacred way, I could not keep using spiritual language to avoid the truth. And this is one of the biggest dangers I see in this space because for people with addiction histories, we can really quickly spiritualize the same pattern. We can take the part of us that wants intensity, escape, specialness, uniqueness, relief, and dress it up in ceremonial language. I know this because I've done it. So now when I talk about psychedelics and recovery, I talk about it with reverence, but I also talk about it honestly. I talk about medicine, but I also ask motive. What is the reason I'm seeking this journey? We talk about ceremony, but also about the structure. And we talk about healing, but also with accountability. Because for people like me, it matters why we are searching for something. Am I actually seeking healing? Or am I seeking a new way to feel different? Am I willing to do the integration? Or am I only seeking another powerful experience? Am I being honest with the people who support my recovery? Or am I hiding this because some part of me knows that I'm not grounded? And these are not shame questions. They are protection questions. They are questions that help keep this work sacred. Because I do believe these medicines can be powerful. I have experienced that. When they are held in the right container with reverence, preparation, ethical guidance, and a sincere desire for healing, they can reconnect parts of us that addiction severed. They can remind us that we are not just our shame and that there is still life in us. And they can help us feel connected again and have a direct experience with something greater than ourselves. And they can help us remember at the end of the day that we are already whole, that there is nothing outside of us that we need to seek in order to surrender. But that remembering has to be protected. It has to be practiced daily. It has to be brought into our lives. Otherwise, it just stays in ceremony and nothing changes. And my life did not change because I had another ceremony. My life changed because I finally had a container that helped me live differently after ceremony. And that has made all the difference. So when I say there can be a safe and powerful way to incorporate this work into your recovery journey, I'm not saying it casually. I'm not saying it impulsively. And I'm not saying it secretly or as a loophole or as a replacement for any of the things that are supporting your recovery now. I mean this as a part of the larger path of your healing journey, a path that includes enough humility to know that not everyone is ready at every time, and not every medicine is right for every person. For me, this work has not been a step backward, and it's also not been a shortcut. It has been a leap forward only when I stop treating the experience as the answer and start letting it become a part of the way that I lived. Integration helped me bring the vision into my daily choices. Community helped me stay connected to the person I had been shown I could become. That is the difference between escape and embodiment. Escape was me trying to get out of my life. Embodiment is me learning how to live my life differently. That has been my journey from psychedelics as part of the party to earth medicine as a desperate search for the cure to years of powerful experiences that I could not yet sustain. From relapse to treatment to recovery to authentic surrender to community, and to finally understanding that the medicine was never just what happened in ceremony. So I will close with this. The medicine did not give me permission to escape recovery. It showed me why my recovery mattered. It showed me the person I could become. But recovery, integration, and surrender helped me actually become him. Thank you for letting me share.
That was beautiful.
Thanks.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been an exciting month in our household as we both have picked up chips this month in our recovery. And that's always so exciting here in the ArcherShaw Temple in Puerto Vallarta. We get to go down to our local meeting and pick up our chips and carry the message of recovery out into the world. Okay, before we open up the floor for questions and comments, which we're definitely going to do because we definitely want to hear from all of you, I wanted to share a little bit about some of the limitations of the current addiction treatment model. So, first, traditional recovery approaches have helped millions and millions and millions of people. Recovery communities save lives. Treatment saves lives. And 12-step programs save lives. But they do not help everyone equally. And even for people who maintain sobriety, there are many people who still struggle with shame, emotional suppression, trauma, identity fragmentation. nervous system dysregulation, loneliness, and spiritual disconnection. Stopping a behavior is not always the same thing as healing. And I think that that's one of the reasons why psychedelic assisted therapy has gained so much attention. Because for some of us, it appears to create access to emotional and psychological material that traditional approaches sometimes struggle to reach. If you're interested in hearing my story, the webinar from a few weeks ago where I shared my story is on our YouTube channel at ArcherShaw Temple, where I share a little bit about how all of my years of work were amazing and helped me get to today, but they didn't do what the psychedelic healing did for me in my first retreat. So psychedelics, they're not magic, okay? And they're not inherently healing, and they're not certainly appropriate for everyone. The context matters, structure matters, like Aeon talked about, preparation matters, and integration is so key. Without those things, people can easily confuse intensity with transformation. All right, here's a little bit of the science. One of the reasons psychedelic assisted therapy is receiving so much attention right now is because researchers are observing measurable neurological and psychological effects. Many psychedelic compounds appear to temporarily reduce rigid activity in what's called the default mode network. This network in our brain, it's associated with repetitive self-referential thinking, rigid identity structures, compulsive mental loops, and entrenched behavioral patterns. And under the right conditions, these compounds may increase neuroplasticity, emotional openness, cognitive flexibility, psychological insight, and meaning-making capacity. Some studies involving psilocybin-assisted therapy have shown significant reductions in alcohol misuse and smoking behaviors. Research involving MDMA-assisted therapy has shown remarkable outcomes around PTSD and trauma resolution. And importantly, many researchers now believe the quality of the experience alone is not enough. Integration support appears to be one of the most important variables in long-term outcomes. An insight is not transformation, and a breakthrough is not healing. And a powerful experience without integration can simply become another experience. All right, at this point, we'd love to open up the floor for questions. Anybody that has questions, comments, I'm gonna take the spotlight off us and bring everyone into the room here. You'll have to unmute yourself, but we would love to hear any comments or questions you might have.
Welcome, Scott. Welcome, Austin. Welcome, Lacey. Again, welcome, Erica.
Hey, Jamie. Jamie made it. Anybody have any questions or comments?
So it really hit home for me when I heard you guys speak about how you hide in society, even if you're in treatment or wherever you're at in that step process. Uh, I personally changed my people, places, and things. I moved halfway across the country to have a new start. I got a divorce. I am in a different relationship, and that relationship, he hasn't experienced my addiction. He's only experiencing the recovery, and part of that, I career changed. I am now working as an officer in a trauma informed based therapy center for youth. And so what I bring to them is the knowledge that I've gained from the treatment center that I went to, and my life experiences. I can't exactly promote this to youth, obviously. So I guess I have a lot of questions on how this work, how this treatment would work for an adult, a consenting adult, versus the outside world and how they perceive it, and not necessarily just youth, but the outside world in general, because it's very frowned upon when you discuss it.
It's very frowned upon in the traditional treatment model setting.
Well, I mean, not only
Is that-
there,
that-
but in general, like, I mean, even people who aren't in recovery still have like a negative view of psychedelic medication, which is
Yes.
in large part because of the war on drugs in the 1970s. There was the government paid a lot of money to like demonize psychedelic medication because they didn't want people being so open to change during Vietnam. And so it was like the way people see psychedelic medication right now is in part was paid for by the United States government in order to demonize those types of medicines, because it was so opening people's minds and was going against the status quo at the time. But I mean, to answer your question, there are so many communities out there. For us, like, I don't go to my traditional 12-step meeting, the program that I'm in, and I don't talk about my psychedelic work in my recovery community. Because it's not the appropriate place for that conversation. Now, my sponsor knows about the work that I do, and that's important that my sponsor knows everything about my life. And I made sure that when I found a sponsor, they understood what I do, how it's a part of my spiritual practice. And I share with him the thought process behind, when we make the decision to, like, if we're do a ceremony, just the two of us, which doesn't happen very often. But it's like, what is the intention behind it? And there are communities out there, like Psychedelics in Recovery is a 12-step based recovery community that encourages you to have your base fellowship, but also is a community of people where they talk about their experiences and their decision making behind what they're learning, why they're doing this work, and what they're discovering, and how they're working through the trauma that it brings up and brings to the surface. So, like, that community is a really great place. It's not something that you go on top of the mountain and tell everybody about, because of the fact that it is can be taboo in some circles. So the journey with psychedelics is a very personal journey, and is meant to, and that's important because it's a sacred experience, and so it's meant to be personal. And you want to make sure you have safe people to discuss it with. That's why we have a community that we have ourselves. And that we always invite people into to participate in that community as well, so that way you feel supported in that journey that you decide to take.
At the same time, I do not think those of us that are using psychedelics in recovery need to remain in the closet. I think there is an appropriate place to have this discussion, and it's one of the reasons why we are doing these webinars on a regular basis. One of the reasons why I write so many articles for our blog at ArcherShaw.guru and for LinkedIn. Because the world needs to know about this form of healing that has existed long before humans walked the earth. Fungi has been here healing the Mother Earth, right? So, like, this is a healing that has been around for a very long time that the Earth Mother provides for us, right? And thank God now we have research, right? So for those people that are skeptical, it depends on my population. Who am I talking to, right? If I'm talking to a bunch of mental health providers who have worked in the traditional treatment setting, or if I'm teaching like a CEU for them, I'm going to bring in a lot of research and kind of show them what the most recent findings are. Thanks to Joe Rogan and some other big podcasts in the USA, the word is getting out about ibogaine and different types of therapy out there, and that's sparking discussion, which is really great. And then, of course, President Trump signed the order to fast track some of that research. And that's really amazing as well. And so people are like, whoa, what is this, like, earth plant medicine stuff, right? And so this discussions are starting to be had. And I think it's really important to talk about the various paths to recovery, because there isn't just one path, right? However, for a first-time addiction person who has a disease of addiction, right? If they have not gone to treatment or have any kind of foundation, they will be screened out of coming to one of our retreats, right? Like, we are not a detox. You have to have a foundation of the traditional recovery in order to come to one of our retreats, because, like Aeon said, integration is so key. And when you leave one of our retreats, you're going to need a supportive community that loves you and supports you for all the decisions that you've made regarding your treatment, right? And so there's lots of paths to recovery. And I do think it's fair to let our clients know, for those of you that are practitioners, to say, hey, there are a lot of options for you. There's a lot of ways that you can recover from trauma, from anxiety, from depression. In the USA back in the day, for me, it was like, you have depression, anxiety, or whatever, go take a pill. And I was on a million pills for a million things before I did my first plant medicine retreat. I have never had to go back on any of that medication again. That's my story, right? That's my story, right? But my psychiatric nurse practitioner was wonderful. She helped me taper off everything. She knew exactly what I was embarking upon. You know, she did not have an opinion. She was happy for me that I was traveling down this other path and wanted to make sure that I was prepared medically to do so. We have with us today Jamie Dirks from Colorado. I wonder if Jamie would like to chime in here. Jamie has been a long time earth medicine practitioner in Colorado, where many of you know many of the earth medicines are being legalized there. So, Jamie, would you like to discuss a little bit or answer, maybe help shed some light on how things are there for you?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Nice to see you guys. The I do like the nomenclature earth medicine. That's because the fungi aren't plants, and ketamine comes from the earth because everything else does too. So I think it's all of these medicines. I think you know have a role, and I think, but you know, you guys pointed out astutely that it's not just a medicine. You don't take a pill and fix something. You don't go to a mushroom ceremony and fix anything. It These medicines show you what could potentially be improved upon, what could potentially be not dwelt upon so much, and other things that might be helpful for you. And with, like I said, with the right kind of support, I think that's really where a lot of the good work happens. And Colorado is interesting. Erica could attest to this too. It's unfolding daily in different sort of rhythms and different sort of intervals. I mean, psilocybin mushrooms are legal now. Ibogaine is not too far in the offing, and we're talking addiction in particular. That's a decidedly powerful earth medicine,
Yes.
whether it's iboga itself, whether it's total alkaloid, whether it's straight ibogaine. Either way, it's really powerful, and not just for addiction either. That's what's so impressive with that medicine. The things in the trauma world and the things in the chronic pain world, things of it is it's pretty fascinating. So Colorado's, it's interesting to see it unfold daily. And what's interesting to see, at least especially from a nurse practitioner nursing standpoint, is what safety is being prioritized, what safety is being bypassed, what's really important to appreciate given this condition, given this background. Is this going to be a safe thing for you? So nurses go safety first, as everyone else should anyway. And that's I think there's a good community in Colorado that really does support that, rather than like, hey, let's rush to the ibogaine ceremony and I'll never be addicted to heroin again. Maybe, but let's make sure you don't have a heart attack and things
Exactly.
like that. So I think and Lacey's question about, are these things potentially appropriate for younger generations? Maybe. I think the good thing to notice with younger generations is, teenagers don't have their adult background and framework all, that are informing everything they do. They're developing that. So different levels and different types of care with the teenagers for sure is top of the list. But I think that medicines like these can be helpful for numbers of people, a number of different conditions, in a number of ways, particularly if we have more accessibility to it. That's accessibility and availability continue to be the the thing we chime in about the most, and the thing that we idealists hope for the most is access and availability to all who could benefit. But like you said, it does take a community. It takes multidisciplinary support and help, and that's why we come to these things, so we can see what the community is doing and how the community could be better supported and where we can go from there. So for similar reasons.
All right. Thank you so much, Jamie.
So nice to see you.
So good to see
Yeah,
you.
you too.
All right. Did anyone else have any questions or comments? Anything they'd like to share, Scott or Erica?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay, yeah. I'm Scott. I live in New York, actually New York City, and I have 2 years of recovery from crystal meth, which is great.
Yeah.
And I've just returned to practice. I'm a psychiatrist with some training in child and adolescent, but I went to the addictions conference in Denver last year, the annual symposium, which the psychedelics were brought up there and the research about it, and I'm very curious and interested in it, although probably not going to happen in New York over the next year or two, but it is happening in Colorado, and I'm very curious to learn about it and know more, because I do believe that there is an untapped area that can greatly help people. And I do believe that it was stunted, or stopped, by the government years ago. And it's nice to see that there's, gaining traction. And I feel like there's a huge benefit that could be for, the patients I'll be seeing in the future. And, my practice, I see the depression and the anxiety. Just started back a couple months ago, but I also plan to have part of, like, probably half my practice working with people in addiction, because I have 25 years of experience with it, and so
Yeah.
I think I could bring something to them that, to be real. But this is something that I think, may really help people. And in here in New York City, in my CMA program, there are a couple of us, that actually have talked about psychedelics. And actually, one of my friends gave this to me, so I found out about this webinar.
Mm.
So it is very word of mouth, and it's very lightly treaded, because of course never brought up in meetings, but at fellowship or just amongst each other, like we start to feel the other people that are open to something like this. And it's actually something that I'm very open and would love to experience, the whole process, or actually a psychedelic, I don't know how you'd say, a retreat or something like that, where I would actually go through the process. So to live it, and then, having that experience, then feel more comfortable passing it on to other people and, promoting it. But and I don't know how to do that, or where to do that. There's been all talk going, I have to go to South America, but now I've been hearing a little bit about possibly Denver having places that might be possible. But it's something that I very much want to do, and I have a friend in the program who's very eager to do it together. Actually, two other friends, and we've all talked about, like, if we could find it place, like we would do this maybe as a joint venture, to go somewhere. So that's some of my interest, finding out that information, but also to experience it, but very much also to then promote it, because I think that there is a great benefit. And the more of a community maybe I set up here, maybe by the time I get a bigger practice, maybe New York will have some legalization of it. I don't know how quickly it'll move across the country, you never know. But
Mhm.
so that's where I'm coming from, and that's why I joined this, to hear about all this and to learn more. So I'd
Well,
like
you're
to stay in contact to get more information from you guys.
absolutely. We will give you guys all that information here in a minute.
Fantastic.
We're
Thank
so
you.
glad that you're here. I have been treating addiction my whole career,
Mhm.
and when I went through my first plant medicine retreat was after a relapse. I've been in recovery since 2008,
Okay.
but I relapsed in 2019. I went
Okay.
through a divorce. I wasn't spiritually fit, wasn't really working a good program, and one
Midlife
thing.
crisis.
It was a total freaking midlife crisis. And it was a little bit of a shit show for 4 years,
Yeah.
where I jumped back into the 12-step rooms, and but I'd get like 6 months and then go out for 2 days, or I'd have
Yeah.
like 9 months or have 2 years or whatever. And then, a few years back, I had another relapse, and I was like done. I was like, I'm done with this midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like 50 freaking years old. I am too old to be sitting around watching porn and doing meth. I'm just
Right.
too old for that shit. And so, I had a friend who had come down to Mexico to work with this medicine man. And this is a friend who had been in and out of treatment a million times, had never been able to stay clean. And he was celebrating a year because he had gone through this retreat. And
Okay.
when I got quiet enough, Spirit said, you are to call this guy and go. And I was referred, and I got in and I went to this retreat, and I spent 10 days down here in Puerto Vallarta with this medicine man. And at the end of the retreat, this brilliant medicine man said, if you are ready and you are ready, I would like to teach you everything that I know. And I was like, yes. Right, because like
Yeah.
I was looking for a new direction or a different direction to go into in my practice, right?
Yeah.
And so he took me on as a student, and I was really blessed to train with him, for a number of years, where I trained with this indigenous Mexican Mayan medicine man,
Mhm.
right? And then I took courses in the States, right, on Bufo and psilocybin. I went to Combo International and got trained in combo, and I did everything that I could do. And then I launched Merkaba Retreats, which are down here in Puerto Vallarta, where the medicine is legal
Oh, we
in
have one
Yeah.
in Colorado and
in
Austin and
a
Ogden.
gray area. And we're also doing a Colorado retreat for the Lionsgate Portal in August. But I can give you
That's
more
what
information on
I
that
think
later.
I've heard of that. So
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So
So
we'll
I
give you our
wanted
information, and you can like totally connect. But it was going through the experience myself, which was just so life-changing, because
Mhm.
like I would never send a client really to somewhere that I hadn't really experienced or didn't have like really good insight on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's one of those, like, I'm like, you know? And like, even if I refer to other clinicians, like I need to know them. Like I need to meet with them. I need to know who they are as a person, what are their values and so forth. And so it was so incredible that I changed my whole practice. I moved down here. I opened up the retreats and came along. One thing led to another. I was doing this with my brother Keegan at first, and then his father was dying, so he had to step out. And then Spirit said, "Well, we've already given you Aeon, so Aeon he's ready to go." And I was like, "Oh, okay, Aeon, would you like to jump in here and co-facilitate retreats with me?" And then one thing led to another, and we started doing that, and our relationship evolved and so forth. But and here we are. Here we are. So yeah, it's so beautiful to be able to treat, or like, I guess I don't know if that's the right word, but help people, guide people to recover in this way as well, as well as with the traditional model, right? And being able to kind of like fuse them, right? And to bring people in, especially those people that have suffered from chronic relapse. They've done it. They just, what else is there to do? I'm like, well, here's what you can do now. Let's give this a try. So
Yeah, I'm glad you're here.
so glad you're here. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And I think we have a common friend.
Or me and you?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably my sponsor.
Yes, I believe. Yes.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
We'll just stick with that signature.
Small world.
Okay.
Oh
Yes,
my
that's how I
gosh.
found out about you. So that's why I'm here.
cool.
Okay, great.
That's cool.
Oh.
Beautiful. Yeah. All right, great.
Erica,
Let me
did you
silence
have a
this.
question or anything we can answer?
I am Jamie's spouse. I'm not sure.
Two together. Sorry,
I
Erica.
did.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
Oh my gosh, I feel like so stupid.
Don't
Erica,
even worry about it. Don't even worry
I
about
love it. Erica's here.
These are the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are doing beautiful work. Lacey, the biggest thing with adolescents and anybody else is just the honesty and the education that this information is out there. There are, Colorado's been at the forefront since we have had cannabis as medicine, psilocybin for a number of years, and now statewide. They are our allies. Ketamine, Scott, is how we changed our practice and our lives to bring this to other people. And that is legal where you are. And it is a beautiful stepping stone to these other medicines. It is a beautiful trauma healer that is available and utilized in a psychedelic framework. And yeah, so many options, and love what you guys are doing. I have another friend that has had 20 years of sobriety and is a big book aficionado and absolutely loves it and runs her group and the psychedelics in healing and in sobriety with these things. So these medicines are here, tapping into why we all need to be in connection and in community is how we all heal the trauma that got us here.
Oh,
Give me chills.
I know. And we're so blessed to have them because, I guess with your different last names, I just didn't put it together. Sorry, Erica. But I had met with Jamie before, so I knew what he looked like. I've only spoken with Erica on text, you guys. But yeah, they're out in California and Colorado, and Ann and I have a little secret plan to whip something up in Colorado one day, So we're kind of working on a healing center out there. But anyway, we're so glad that you guys are all here. All right, in the chat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, this is our booking link. It takes you to our book online. So I would encourage all of you to, or whoever would like to just click it and then hit, if you want to meet with both of us at the same time, it says like book with Christopher and Aeon together, and just book a time with us. Anytime. We would love to talk more with you. We'd love to get to know you, right? And then I'm going to put the link to the retreats in there as well. It has information on our upcoming retreats. We do mostly private couples and chosen family retreats down here in Puerto Vallarta, the gayest, friendliest city in the universe. It's so beautiful between mountain and sea, where the medicines here are legal in the gray area, which we like. We like the gray area. No, I call it rainbow. It's in the rainbow area, but it's very beautiful down here. And then we will be doing a Colorado retreat in August, so you can learn more about at that website. And then I can also connect you guys with Jamie and Erica's information if you'd like that too. So just let me know and I can give you their information as well. All right. So psychedelics are not inherently healing, and recovery is not a one size fits all. And healing is often much more complex than simply stopping a behavior, right? But I do believe we are entering a new era of conversation around trauma, addiction, consciousness, and human transformation. We believe the future of healing will require more honesty, more nuance, more integration, and more willingness to look beneath the surface. So if today's conversation resonates with you and you want support exploring your own healing path, and for those of you that are also watching the replay, please contact us and schedule a complimentary call just to get to know us and talk. We're not here to sell you anything. We'd love to just get to know you. ArcherShaw.guru/book online. All right. Now, not everyone is always a fit for the medicine, and that's okay. But if you are, we'll all know that really quickly. Okay. So thank you, everybody, so much for being here with us today. We are so grateful for this opportunity to serve the kingdom with you. And grateful to you, Erica, and Jamie, and Scott,
Lacey, thank you.
and all of you who are watching the replay. Thank you for being here.
Have a blessed and prosperous day.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome.